Good day, class. Before we begin to our discussions, let us pray first. Let us bow our heads and feel the presence of the Lord.
Dear Lord, Father of all, thank you for today. Thank you for the ways which you provide us. For your protection, we love to thank you. Guide us by your light and we discover about around. We ask this in the name of Jesus.
Amen. Good morning, class. Let's start this day with a positive and happy vibes to each other. Okay. Miss Secretary, did anyone miss our class today? Okay. No one missed our class today. Very good. Okay. Now, I collect your assignments. Just pass it forward to the front. Very good. So, before we finally proceed to our discussions for today, let us first a short review of our previous discussions. For you to fully remember, we will have a task and we will call it Pick a Lucky Box. The instruction in this task is just easy only. First, the class will be divided into 4 groups. Second, each group contains 5 members. Third, each group has the opportunity to pick a lucky box. Fourth, also each group answer and explain the question that placed in the box. Fifth, lastly, each group will work together to answer and explain the questions. Six, you will also do this activity in just 5 minutes only. Do you understand, class? Okay. Excellent, class. I see how you better understand our previous topic about the origins of food production and settled life. Do you still have questions regarding our previous lessons? Anyone? Okay, very good. Alright, now, before we finally proceed to our new topic for today, we were going to have a motivation first to give you an idea and knowledge in our next topic. And this task will called trivia. Are you familiar, class? Okay, very good. You may now take your seats because this time around, we will having your short activity. All you have to do is to determine the picture shows on the screen. Are you ready, class? Okay, let's start. Okay, first picture. What pictures do you see on the screen? Anyone? Excellent, that's correct. These pictures represent a coffin in the past. Did you know that the wealthy person in the past would order a sarcophagus or a stone coffin? It is used to bury leaders and wealthy residents to enchase the coffin. Also, nobles and very wealthy people were often buried in this tomb that we called mastabas. This tomb would contain the person's mummified bodies as well as food, jewelry, and special objects. But the poor would be buried in the simplest graves only, with their bodies are not mummified, only with minimal household objects that spread out through the desert, often in the areas that are now populated. Do you understand, class? Okay, very good. Okay, second, pictures. What pictures do you see on the screen? Anyone? Very good, that's correct. These pictures represent a civilization in the past. Did you know that the first civilization is called Sumer or Sumerian that emerged in 4500 before Christ era to 1900 before Christ era? And the last civilization is called Ancient Rome that emerged in 750 before Christ era to 470 after death. And did you know that the homes of the wealthy had beds and even mattresses. But the poor people had to be satisfied with sleeping in straw mattresses only, or possible floor rug. Also, poor people had homes that is usually had only raw bricks, but the wealthier people often two or more bricks in their room. Okay, third pictures. What pictures do you see on the screen? Anyone, class? Okay, very good. That's true. These pictures represent a centralized government in the past. Did you know that the first centralized government is called Menes? An ancient Egypt pharaoh, or the earliest dynasty period, and the founder of this first dynasty is called Dynasty 1. It became the first ruler to institute a centralized government. A centralized government had over supreme political authority to a central body or a small groups of individuals, which is responsible for ensuring the proper functions of the economy and all other governing bodies. Do you understand, class? Okay, very good. All right, class. Excellent. Give yourself 10 wonderful claps. Hopefully, you have basic knowledge about our lessons for this day. Very good, class. All right. Before we move on to what we are going to discuss today, I want to first measure your knowledge with the help of the flag that you will see on the screen. Okay, the blue flag represents lower percent of your knowledge. And if you see the red flag, it represents your middle percent of your knowledge and ideas. And the green flag represents your higher knowledge or higher knowledge and above of your knowledge in our lesson for this day. Do you understand, class? Okay. Raise your hands if you belong to blue flag. How about the red flag? Raise your hands if you belong to green flag. Okay, very good everyone. Based on your responses, most of you belong to blue flag, or it means lower knowledge about our lessons for this day. The archaeological inferences about civilizations. Okay, and for this moment, we will now discover more, and I will do my best to be able to point out all the information about this topic through our discussions. Class, are you ready to learn something? Okay, very good. In your perspective, what is the significance of having archaeological inferences about civilizations? Anyone? Okay, very good. Archaeological inferences are important because they help to know the social classes and history of the artifact that can found, so that we can have more knowledge and better understand the events and the way of life that existed then. Also, the analysis reveals that inferences from the advents can indeed be justified in many important situations of archaeological research. How about archaeologists or the people looking for the artifacts? Why they are important in archaeological inferences? Anyone? Okay, excellent class. Archaeologists are important because they provide us with the opportunity to learn about past cultures through the studies of the artifacts and material objects or sometimes human bones. It helps us to understand the past is through the material objects that it finds, allowing us to know what was being used and when it became. Also, archaeologists use several methods like shovels, trowels, spades, sheaves, and buckets, as well as brushes. These are some of the more obvious and common tools that an archaeologist may carry to the most of their digs. Moreover, it appears that the earliest Neolithic societies were egalitarian. That is, people did not differ much in wealth or power. Some later societies show signs of social inequality, indicated by the burials that they find. Archaeologists generally assume that inequality in wealth or inequality in death reflects inequality in life, at least in status, and perhaps also in wealth of everyone. Thus, we can be fairly sure that societies had differences in status. If some people were buried with special objects such as jewelries and or pots that filled with food. For example, some but not all children burials as early 5500 before Christ era at El or Tel Esawan in Iraq and from about 800,000 before Christ era in La Venta in Mexico. Did you know they are filled with statues and ornaments suggesting that some children had high status from their birth? Only when archaeologists find that other substantial differences as in house size and furnishings. Furthermore, some archaeologists think that state first evolved around 3500 before Christ era in Greater Mesopotamia, the area now shared by Iraq and southwestern Iran. However, burials indicating differences in status do not necessarily mean a society had significant differences in wealth, because the reconstructions of burials of prehistoric Peruvian king known as the Lord Saipan note that the carefully laid out wood tomb and ornate such as gold or cloth items that buried with the individuals. Archaeologists assume that such a special treatment indicated elite status in their life. Although archaeologists do not always agree on how the state should be defined, the majority believe that the hierarchical and centralized decision making affecting a large population is the most important criterion. The other characteristics are commonly found in this first state, but not always. They usually have cities with a significant portions of the populations not directly involved in the collections or production of food, which means that people in the cities are heavily reliant on the people elsewhere. But did you know that there is a hierarchical social structure topped by an elite class from which the leaders are drawn? The government tries to calm or claim a monopoly on the use of the force. Our own state society says that citizens do not have the right to take the law in their own hands, that the state uses its force or threat to force a tax its population to drop the people for work to war. Just like British and French, who first came to North America to explore and trade. Uruk city-state seems also to have dominated their peripheral, less developed trading partners. For example, in 3000 before Christ era, there were 45 towns with Uruk styles, pottery and administrative artifacts at river junctions in the North Mesopotamia. Why did Uruk people go there? One possibility is that they deliberately build outposts to secure their access to needed trade goods, including hides and dried meats. But what about the Uruk city-states? Why should they think they too were imperialistic colonizer? Anyone? Okay. Archaeologist Guillermo Algades reviewed the evidence. First, there was the colonizations of the plains on the southwestern Iran, which people could get to from southwestern Mesopotamia in 7 to 10 days by foot or donkey caravan. Also, Algades notes that the Uruk settlers moved into southwestern Iran. They were entering an area that was not densely settled, so they have encountered only minimal resistance. Indeed, the various Uruk period enclaves and outposts outside southern Mesopotamia were apparently a larger and more complex than any previous communities in the peripheral areas. Perhaps then imperialism, colonialism are possible only in the world of inequality or unequal. Did you understand, class? Okay. Do you have any questions about the early 5500 to 5000 before Christ era at Tel Essawan in Iraq? Okay, very good. If there is no one, we will now proceed to the lessons. How can archaeologists tell from the information provided by material remains whether a society was a state or not? This depends in the part on what is used as the criterion for a states. For example, Henry Wright and Gregory Johnson's define a states as a centralized political hierarchical with at least 3 levels of administrations. But how might archaeologists infer that such a hierarchy existed in some area. Wright and Johnson suggested that the way settlement sites differ in size is one indications of how many levels of administration there were in an area. There were about 45 small villages, 3 or 4 towns, and one large center, Susa. These three types of settlement seems to have been a part of three-level because a three-level hierarchy is Wright and Johnson's criterion for a states. They think a states had emerged in the early Uruk times. Evidences from the next period, Middle Uruk, suggested more definitely that the states had emerged, and this evidence takes the form of clay seals that were apparently used in trading. Commodity sealings were used to keep a shipments of goods tightly closed until it reached its destinations, and message sealings were used to keep track of goods sent and received. The clay seals found in Susa include many message seals and bullae, clay containers that serve as bills or of lading for goods. The villages, in contrast, had few messages seals and bullae. Again, these findings suggest that Susa administered the regional movement of goods and that Susa was the capital of the states. Do you have any questions about the early Uruk period? Okay, do you have any question, class, regarding our topic? Anyone? Very good. Excellent. For this time, we will having our group activity. This activity will test your knowledge about our discussions for this day. The title of this activity is Picto Class. Okay, the instructions. The class will be divided into 3 groups. In each group contains 6 members. Each group will undertake brainstorming sessions in order to properly assess and know which class the pictures belong to. Also, all group will simultaneously be presenting their activities. Lastly, you will do this activity in just 10 minutes only. Do you understand, class? Okay, very good. You may now begin. I hope you learned new informations today. All these informations we have gathered about archaeological inferences that a particular people in the past in social classes, cities, or a centralized government are very important. As a student, how this topic gives you more interest in understanding archaeological inferences about civilizations? Anyone? Very good! I hope the discovering of archaeological inferences about civilizations will you understand better. I also hope this lesson gave meaningful knowledge and motivations to you or to all of you. Do you have any question, class? Very good, class. Give yourself a round of applause. And if you don't have any questions, may we now proceed to our evaluations. To your evaluations, I have prepared a quiz to know if you better understand our discussions for this day. And the instruction is, you give the term that referred. You will choose and write the letter of the correct answers in the flank. Okay, you can now begin. And to your assignments, you will find 3 archaeological inferences and you will explain how long is this period and what kind of artifact it is and to which social classes it belongs in ancient times. You will write this on a clean yellow pad paper. You can research in the social media or internet, and you will also look it in the book of the anthropology. Thank you very much for your listening, class. Have a wonderful day to everyone. God bless us all.